Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Yalda Hakim with Sadhguru on religion, politics, and human society. So there's nothing I can give out right away just because that's a lot of answers for those three things. So I'll answer as it goes along, but let's go ahead and get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this conversation with Sadhguru. My work as a journalist, I often find myself in some of the most troubled places on earth, and I realized just how little I know about living and life and how much there is to learn from Sadhguru. This talk tonight is done in partnership with Head Talks, which is basically the TED Talks of the mind, and we will be talking a lot about mental health as well as in our society.
Heart is also allowed.
I hope this is on YouTube because TED Talks type things are automatically blocked, so and I can only hope.
Heart is also allowed, great. We'll talk a little from the heart as well as the head. Seldom do we see this number of people turn out to one of these events queuing for hours beforehand. But that really comes down to the power of Sadhguru and the visionary that he is. He obviously needs no introduction. As you know, he's a mystic, a visionary, a yogi, a teacher, a humanitarian, and someone that we can all learn something about how we live life. Just earlier, we were speaking in the green room about some of the atrocities and some of the things that have happened over the last few weeks and the sorts of things that we witness on a daily basis. And the kind of conversations that we were having in there, I realized just how little I know about living and life and how much there is to learn from him. So I hope that you find tonight, in a way, something that you can take away from his words of wisdom. So I'll pass it on to Sadhguru.
Jananam sukadham Maranam karunam Milanam maduram Smaranam karunam Kalavashadiha Sakalam karunam Samayadipate Akilam karunam. Good evening everyone.
Sadhguru, can you tell us a little bit about that chant and what it means?
Well, I'm just not going by the word meaning, but the overall meaning would be, birth is a certain pleasure and joy, but death is compassion. When you have lived enough, the relief of death is fantastic. The worst thing that could happen to you is that suppose you have to live forever. And what we are calling as birth and death is just a certain amount of time and a certain amount of energy in play. Time-wise, no matter who you are, what you are, for all of us, time is rolling away at the same pace. There's nothing you can do about it. You can't hold back a day. You can't hold back a minute. But our life energies are in our hands. If we take charge of this, then in a certain way, we have mastery over time. If your experience of life, by taking charge of your energies, you make it very intense, then how you live, if you live here For a year, it may feel like you live here for 100 years because of the sheer intensity of your existence. And also in terms of activity, if you organize your energies well, what somebody may do in 10 years, you may do it in 1 year. So in terms of impact, if you live 100 years, you lived 1,000 years. So essentially, we're talking about organizing that we can organize and coming to terms with that which we cannot organize. This is where the equilibrium of life is.
You just said the worst thing that can happen is if you live forever. But what if that death is then imposed on you? So I go back to what happened on Easter Sunday in Sri Lanka and the attacks on various churches across Colombo, where 310 people were killed. I mean, what goes through your mind when you see this, I mean, some would say level of evil inflicted on man by man?
Okay, that is a question, and the only thing I could ever think about with this is always try to live life without regret. Live life to the fullest. Mind you, don't like spend all your money because you don't know when you're gonna die. But at the same time, because you don't know when you're gonna die, you want to make sure you live life to the fullest with no regret. Because it's like a circle. You don't know when you're gonna die, so live life to your fullest. But because you don't know when you're gonna die, you want to make sure you're kind of still, you know, not like blowing everything you got, because you could still live for another 20, 30, 100 years or whatever. It's kind of contradictory, I guess. And about the evils of man, you know, they're just... I know Sadhguru has an answer for this. It's just inner peace, honestly. If we had inner peace for everyone, I do believe we would live in a much better life. It's just that it's so hard to teach that to everyone in the world, especially hard-headed people.
Oh, we must understand, evil has always been inflicted only by one man upon another man, never by some other forces. It never happened like that. No hand jumped out of the sky and did any evil to anybody ever in the history of humanity. It's always one person doing something horrible to another person. This could be done for economic reasons, this could be done because of egoistic reasons, this could be done because of wealth, property, so many things. But if we have a fight for something, let's say we are fighting for this flower vase, you and me. At some point if we fight enough, either some wisdom will arise in you or me and say, okay, you keep it, but I don't want this nonsense going on forever. It'll come somewhere.
I can only… the only reason why I pause here is because there have been many wars that's still going on now that's happened in the past, and it's just because of something that happened to one… just an example, it's something that happened to one family member, and then these two families have fought for 200 years. Why are their children fighting it? Because of something their grandparents done, and their parents told them to fight them, they hate them or whatever, and it just hasn't ended. I do believe… was it the 100 Years' War? Then there's, I think, I remember this a long time ago, I just don't know if it's true now, but there was two tribes in, I believe in Africa, that were just constantly fighting because of different beliefs. And then you also have a whole bunch of drug dealers doing fighting, and then we have even political fights all around the world. It's… I don't know, I just think of really long fights and why continue that, which is… for the most part, it ends up coming down to like, we're tired of this, but it's just how long?
But when people believe that they're fighting for their gods,
oh God,
there is no compromise. This is what we need to understand.
I paused it. I thought it was gonna maybe… didn't think it was gonna continue on with that subject, but yes. And the sad truth, there are certain countries, maybe even continents, that are, because of religious influence, it really kind of wrecked the land. I mean, that was clearly in the past for sure, but it's still even going on today in some parts.
You cannot compromise when you're fighting for your God. If it's property, I'll give it away. But I'm fighting for something about which there is no question of compromise. So we need to understand this. It's not when events happen like this, terrible events like this happen, everybody for a few days they will feel all this and then they'll go about their normal business. We must understand the moment you believe something, and I believe something else, it's just a question of time when we are going to kill each other. Maybe we will, or maybe our children will, or maybe their children will, but it's bound to happen. When you believe something, when you believe means just this, what you do not know you assume and you concretize this assumption in your minds and you gather numbers. If these 1,000 people here all believe one thing, and when we step out on the street, if they all believe something else, inevitably there's going to be a clash. It's just a question of time.
How do we deal with this though?
So, you have set up the menu.
Sorry. How do we deal with this? I don't know. A belief is something that's very, very difficult to reconcile or to deal with, because belief is something people believe in without proof, and if you cannot prove it to be real, you cannot argue against it. It's like, my God said this, and it's like, okay, your God doesn't exist. Prove it to me. Well, you have to prove that he exists. He exists. Okay, I can't prove your God doesn't exist. I can't prove that you hearing things. But mind you, again, nothing necessarily wrong with believing in a God or gods or no gods, but it's what you do with it's the problem. And whenever people start hearing, like, my God said to attack this and attack that, and you must follow me, you must follow my gods, or punishment will come to you. That's where it crosses the line. Well, it crossed the line a long time ago, but that's where it crossed the line. Believing in something and saying, hey, I want to share my beliefs with you if you want to listen, perfectly fine. If you say, oh, you better follow my beliefs, otherwise I'm going to punish you, I'm going to do whatever, that's too far.
But you're surprised when it gets served on your table. Why are you surprised? It is bound to happen. It's bound to happen.
I guess they're surprised because it happened then and not later on. You know, it's like, I know it's going to happen. It's just I was hoping it's 150 years from now, not now.
All this talk about just adjusting and, creating a little bit of peace here and there is not a solution. One fundamental thing that we should do in the next 25 years, if we are really concerned about the future of the world, because the day of the sword is over. Now it is a day of a deadly button, which can do things that you can't imagine ever. Those kind of things it can do. Well, these deadly buttons are being spoken about on a regular basis these days in various places. So when this kind of capability is there, it's important in the next 25 years, we have to establish in the world, your religion is your personal pursuit, do whatever the hell you want.
Yes.
But it cannot be a national or global agenda. This must be set 100%. If we don't do this, we are not looking at just a few churches exploding or somebody shooting in the mosque or something else. You could have nations exploding into bits. It's a large part of humanity can go into bits because that's the kind of empowerment we have in terms of technology. It's not like you'll take your sword and kill 100 people. You're going to just take away millions at a time. So when this kind of empowerment is there, these kind of rudimentary beliefs, when I say rudimentary belief, I'm just saying, you believe something that you don't know. Let's understand the word belief first of all. I'll ask you a simple question, is it okay? Am I too abrasive for you?
No.
You said it's head talk. Suppose I ask you right now, how many of you believe you have two hands? Please raise one hand.
I don't believe, I know I have two hands, so I won't raise my hand.
Do you believe you have two hands or do you know you have two hands? If I start an argument with you that you don't have two hands, and if my argument becomes too powerful, one slap in the face and you know you got hands. So with hands you know. There are so many things you believe. What does it mean? It simply means things that you do not know. You are not sincere enough to admit what I do not know as what I do not know.
So I do have something to say about that. Sorry, readjusting a foot. I kind of sit like, well, I think everyone does. Anyways, so I completely agree with that. My situation is I'm gonna grab the pen again. So this pen, I 100% know. I do not know 100%. I generally always start right here. So as more knowledge I obtain about something, the more I know about it. It's never going to be necessarily 100%, but it could sit maybe like at 99.9%. I'm always open to hear arguments against it, but generally speaking, I can say this is where I don't know. I don't know if it does or doesn't exist. I have no knowledge of it, and I will sit at the I don't know position. As I obtain more knowledge, I go to the I know position. I'm sorry, that it is true or not true. That makes more sense. I don't know, it is true or it is not true. As I obtain more knowledge that it is true, I lean more towards the true section. As I obtain more knowledge that it's false or not true, I lean towards the not true section. Otherwise, I sit in the middle. As I obtain experience or knowledge, I swing one way or the other. Never necessarily 100% on either end, because I'm always willing to hear arguments against it, but I tend to lean one or another if I have prior experience or knowledge of it. It's just people who are hard set on who's here, people who are here that I know it's true, with no facts, no experience, based on just what someone heard with no proof. That is belief. Belief without experience or truths, facts, or whatever. Same thing sits on this part. If you go to the far extreme without any proof, knowledge, or whatever. Extremes.
Because you've not understood the immensity of I do not know. Only when you see I do not know, the longing to know, the seeking to know, and the possibility of knowing becomes a living reality. Otherwise, everything I do not know, I just assume. What is the point of that? The moment you assume and you gather 1,000 people who assume the same things, and I assume something and I gather 10,000 people who assume the same thing, clash is inevitable, believe me.
But it's easier said than done to say, well, in the next 25 years we need to get out of this mindset.
Well, never before this was possible. Today we are sitting here just talking to 1,000 people. But you know that today we have means, what we speak here, we can make it reach the entire humanity. This was never ever possible. Many fantastic human beings have come, but what they could do was minimal, because when they spoke, hardly 10 people heard. Today you can sit here and speak to the entire world.
That is true, but there's one thing, I guess, that I don't know if she's going to answer this. It's just, even if you speak to someone, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to believe you. Or maybe they just hate you because of who you are and then will assume everything you say is just trash. There are people out there like that, and trying to reach those people which are not open-minded, are completely close-minded in certain aspects, and maybe even most aspects, is the problem.
When you have this capability, how come you say you cannot transform the world? We can. It is just that, are we committed to making it happen? I was just talking to somebody who was some kind of an expert on the internet. That's when I started going on YouTube and everything. This is about 12 years ago. I was talking to someone in United States who is some kind of an expert on the internet affairs. So I've never gone browsing or anything, I'm just busy with what I'm doing. So I just asked, what are people looking for hours on end there on this net? So
cat videos. Oh, I'm sorry.
he very casually says, Sadhguru, about 70% is pornography. I said, what? He says, yes. I didn't want to believe him. I said, this is not possible. It can't be 70%. Maybe
80%.
some people are looking up something. But then I check with a few other people. Everybody says 70% of data is pornography. And they tell me, every year some 1.2 million children below 15 years of age are being sold on internet.
Oh.
What's wrong with us? I'm saying, when such a tremendous tool of technology comes to us, we want to sell our children? Is this how we use it? We want to change this. That's why I'm loud in the last 10 years, out on the internet.
Do you think, though, that technology is a good thing or a bad thing?
Easy to answer this question. Neither. It's all a matter of how you use it. The internet is but a tool for us to use as we see fit. If we use it for good, it'll be good. If we use it for bad, it'll be bad.
Technology is neither. The beautiful thing about technology is, if you learn to use it, it works for you. But who you are will decide how you use it, isn't it?
70% of people using it for porn.
But how do you
So
deal…
what we need to fix right now in the world is, who are we? This is what we need to fix. We've all become many things which we are not. Essentially, we are born as life on this planet. Rest of the things are taught to us, isn't it? Stop teaching all this stuff which makes us something other than human beings.
I mean, you can say this as Sadhguru, but how do you deal with a 15-year-old who spends 6-7 hours of their day on a phone, which then impacts their mental health, their state of mind?
See,
That is something I will say is kind of new. Whenever I was growing up, we didn't have all these technologies or internet. We kind of had the internet, but it's really slow. Looking at 56K modems, downloading at 2 kilobits per second. To download music, you had to set your computer up at night and wake up in the morning and it'll be done, like a 2 megabyte music or 3 megabyte music file. It took that long to download one music file. Leave your computer on, 6 hours later it was done. But now with the internet and cell phones and the internet itself just being generally accessible from everywhere because of the cell phone, that is something new. I didn't grow up with that necessarily, so I am curious as how do parents or people with children who grow up with that handle it. I do have cousins who are much younger than I am, and they have cell phones and they're on it all the time. I'm like, man, if I were to have a child one day, how would I handle that? How would I handle that? But then again, there's someone else that I know who has a child that she limits her child on the computer and phone, and it's he's young, but it's kind of, how do I say, he's realizing that everyone else has phones and he can't use his phone as often. I don't know. I'm sure being a parent in these times are, I wouldn't say necessarily as tough in terms of physical endurance, but in terms of psychological probably, and just different things are, it's tougher in this time for a different reason than the olden times. But that's probably going to be like that for the future too.
Being on the phone need not necessarily impact the mental health. But what is on the phone? That's a question, isn't it? Right now, at least in India, whatever they may be looking for pornography, but Sadhguru pops up.
That would be weird. Alright, let's go look at some… Dang, Sadhguru. Let me pull my pants back up and close.
I'm telling you, I'm saying this with a certain glee because you know, I'm just walking in Bangalore city. Some 12, 13-year-old boys, a bunch of them, they say, "Hey, Sadhguru, Sadhguru," and they come running. I said, "Hey, you idiots, how do you know who I am?" They said, "No, we watch your videos, Sadhguru." I said, "What? Your mothers must be forcing you to watch my videos?" They said, "No, in our class, all of us are watching your videos." I really inquired, and I find in every school that I go to, at least 20 to 30% of the children are watching our videos. I'm telling you, when I was 15, nobody could ever get me to watch a goddamn spiritual video. All right? No way. But today, children are watching. So, this is a new and a fantastic development. So, phone is not the problem. What is the content you're putting on it and who is putting on it? Children are putting? No, adults are putting. Everything has become commerce. So, children are playing video games. Whatever, in India, some PUBG, what is it?
PUBG.
I came to know about it because the Prime Minister mentioned this. See, it seems whatever, 2-3 hours a day, you're practicing how to kill this one, this one, this one and this one, okay? I'm shooting. When I am 12, 13, it may be okay. When I become 18, don't I want to get a little real? Am I happy just shooting them on my phone? I would like to really shoot them.
Oh geez, I was like…
You think I will be satisfied just shooting people? When I think it's the right thing to do, whoever appears, I shoot them on the phone. You think my instinct of wanting to shoot people that I see will be satisfied just on the phone? You are living somewhere. It's not reality. So when we are putting our children through this, and we think they are violent, they are wrong, no, this is the kind of content you're giving them. Can't we change the content to whatever extent we can?
I mean, but there are a lot of studies that have been done that the internet is causing a lot of angst for young people.
See, these studies goes on about everything. What is not causing angst, tell me? Everything.
So, there have been studies in the US courts about how video games may be causing violence in young people, but all the studies that have been done so far has proven that to be not true. People who play games, people who generally play games tend to vent their frustration out in the game instead of out in the real world. But don't get me wrong, there are a few people out there who just maybe are not good at the game, they're constantly losing, and they just vent their frustration on the physical object too. But yeah, I whenever he said that, I thought he was going along the lines of what he literally just said. I'm like, whoa, 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 you know, there's no evidence of that. But I get what it's saying. It seems that's what people in America thought about, but there's been no proof on it. And it's, for most people, games are just a way of venting frustration, relaxing. It's not always necessarily shooting people as well. As there's cooperative games, which you play with your friends and have fun. And also where you can play with friends like across the state, city, or whatever, and have fun because you know you don't live close by, or you don't have a car to drive over there, so you can play on the internet. Excuse me, jeez. But you can play on the internet and still have a connection with your friends. That's something that you can do together and have fun.
The thing is, and the studies keep changing all the time. Yes, there is some kind of impact of a screen time because of the type of light it emits. People lose their ability, because they're going on this late night, they cannot sleep properly. Because they cannot sleep properly, next day morning there are many troubles. All these things are rolling up. Today in United States, they have technology de-addiction centers, where like AA or something, they have technology de-addiction centers where people go there, and it's a big thing that you can live without a phone. It's a huge achievement that you kept your phone away for whatever number of days. So, technology is not the problem. Compulsiveness is the problem, isn't it? If you're compulsive, even the food that you eat, if you eat compulsively, won't you get sick? So for compulsiveness, there's only one cure, consciousness. There is simply no other cure. You can make adjustments. Can I say a joke? Is it okay?
Please, of course.
It's kind of terrible that he has to ask that. But I guess I kind of understand where it's coming from. I guess people are so sensitive around the world that saying a joke may offend someone. Intent, to me, is what matters a lot. So if you intend to offend someone, then you could be seen as an a-hole. But if your intent is to be a joke, even though it's offensive, knowing people, you can kind of get that they're joking. But I guess maybe not a lot of people know whether you're joking or not, so you say, I'm gonna say a joke here. Instead of asking, you say, I'm about to say a joke, I guess.
On a certain day, an office colleague, a young woman, asked Shankaran Pillai that, if she could get a lift in his car. So, he took her in the car and he was driving. When it got a little lonely part of the road, he pulled the car aside and he suddenly became like an octopus. That is, his limbs were all over her. She pushed him away and said, "You fool, what are you trying to do? I thought you're a decent fellow and I came with you." He said, "I'm sorry, I quit smoking."
Then tell us, how do we get to a point of consciousness then? How do we not take our impulse from smoking to something else?
See, we are misunderstanding consciousness as just mental alertness.
I will say that is how I understood consciousness.
Mental alertness will help you to survive better. Consciousness is not about that. See, you know that you exist right now only because you're conscious, isn't it? You are conscious right now. That's why you know that you're here. Suppose you fell asleep. You don't know that you exist, isn't it? You don't know the world exists, nor do you know that you exist, simply because you're somewhat unconscious. Does it mean to say you're completely unconscious? No, you're still conscious when you're sleeping, but not conscious enough to notice the presence of many things. So consciousness is not whether it is present or absent, it is always there. The question is only the intensity and the volume of it. If we have to use an analogy, right now see, the lights are focused on us, so both of us are clearly seen. There are people hiding in darkness. Suppose you dim the light further, all these people will disappear, only two of us will be there. If you increase the voltage, suddenly they will all appear. They were always here. They were here all the time. Because the lights were dimmed, I could only see you and nobody else. If the lights were up, then you could see. This is all consciousness sees. Everybody is conscious. Question is how conscious. So to increase or to raise consciousness, what have we done in the societies? Our entire education system is just about survival, one being better than the other. How can you be conscious when you're competitive? When all you want to do is be better than somebody. Your only joy is other people's failures.
I certainly hope that's not what people think. I hope people take joy in their success, not necessarily other people's failures. I take joy in other people's success and seeing people happy.
How will you be conscious?
Is that weird?
When you're enjoying other people's sufferings, other people's failures, this is what being number one means. I'm the number one means what?
Everyone else
You're
failed.
number 10. That's my joy. So I think this is sickness. From kindergarten, you're spreading the sickness into children and you expect them to be fantastic. It won't work like that.
So do we need to change our systems?
Oh, definitely.
The way you said that, Hold on, I gotta see how he said that again. It's
Expect them to be fantastic. It won't work like that.
the way
So
he
do we need
looked.
to change our systems?
Oh, definitely.
Look, the little smirk and the little side.
See, right now, it is anyway going to change in the next 5 to 10 years, not because people are going to become conscious, simply because of artificial intelligence. For a long time, I always wondered, even when I went to the school, an idiotic person who's read a book a few years ahead of me suddenly is acting like they're something superior. Just you read a book few years ahead of me, and how come you're so superior? I don't understand this. If you're a scholar, you read a few books. If you're a religious person, you read just one book and somehow you're superior. How come just by reading one book ahead of me, you become a superior life? All this is going to be demolished in the next 5–10 years' time. My phone will be able to do 10 PhDs a day. It has enough memory to do that. So all scholars, religious people, people who just keep on vomiting their stuff that they've read elsewhere, this will be nothing. This will be nothing. So, see, there was a time, I remember this very well, in Mumbai port, when the first gantry was installed to load and unload the ships, about 35, 40 years ago maybe, all the labor protested, they went on strikes. Then I was in I'm interested in this thing, so I was visiting some ports recently. I was inquiring what was the size of the vessels then, what is the size of the vessel now, how much time does it take to load, unload. At that time, the biggest vessels were about 30,000 tons or 35,000 tons, in that range.
I wonder if he's going to go along the lines of the vessels were smaller and took longer to unload, whereas now the vessels are bigger and they can unload it a lot quicker because of technology.
Today, most of the vessels are over 100,000 tons, some of them are 250,000 tons. But at that time, they were taking 26 to 28 days to unload one ship. Today, they unload a ship in less than 24 hours and they're unloading 12-15 ships at the same time. That is, in one day, 12-15 ships are unloaded. Why? Because of from man's muscle, we move to machine. Right now, all the professors, scholars, all of them are crying, what will happen to our jobs? It's the same situation.
Yeah, I had a discussion about that with actually one of my friends on this channel. And it's just a very interesting, it's the progression of our workforce getting between the next stage, the next stage, the next stage is always going to be hardships. The thing that I talked to him about is the fact that we're losing a lot of manual jobs to automated machines. But the thing he doesn't really look at is the sheer fact that there's a lot of jobs that were created that was not there before. This being one of them, YouTube. A lot of people are getting on YouTube and making it as their career. I hope one day to do that, or at least make it to where I can live comfortably. I'm not necessarily asking for much, but it'd be nice. I'd love to be able to do a lot more, but I can only do it with what I got. But I told him that, and I understand that it's that transitional phase to the point that we went to an extreme to where everything was ran by machine, including as far as to say that machines can code themselves. Then I told them we're going to live in like a Wall-E world. I never watched the movie, but I think people in that movie don't do anything for themselves. Everything is done for them. All they do is just sit in the lounge or whatever. But I mean, that transitional phase though between losing jobs, manual jobs, over to machines, which Amazon I do believe is doing with this machine that would clamp onto like a box and push them wherever they need to go. People who are normally doing that are going to lose their jobs. Hopefully more jobs open up to compensate for that until we go completely machine-driven workforce, and then we no longer need money because machines are running everything. Getting to that point is the tough part.
What you could do with your intellect, a machine is coming which can do better. My first brush with artificial intelligence, as I saw it, was when I was 13 years of age. Today's children, everybody is on the iPads and screens all the time. When I was 13, for the first time, I saw a flatbed calculator. So somebody brought it to school, I had never seen anything like that.
That's not AI though, that's just a machine. There's a difference between AI and a machine.
They said multiplication, tuk 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 tuk, tuk 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 tuk. Just came. Immediately I felt offended. Because if it can be done like this, why the hell are they torturing me in the arithmetic class? So then I imagined if there was a calculator for physics, chemistry, biology, everything, how wonderful. It took 50 years. Now it's coming. All the best for the children of the future, because they don't have to go through this torture of simply trying to retain something in your memory and believe that your memory is intelligence. Your memory is not intelligence. Your memory is a certain capability, all right, but intelligence is a different dimension of life. Consciousness means pure intelligence, unsullied by memory. Now if I look at you, oh, I know Elda, oh, she's good, she's bad, she's my friend, she's my enemy, this, that, so much nonsense in my head. What happens now is, I don't see you the way you are right now. Yes? If my intelligence is sullied by my memory, I cannot see you and experience you the way you are right now. If I don't see you right now the way you are, I cannot see this flower the way it is right now, I cannot see the sunrise, I cannot see the sunset. For everything I have a stupid meaning in my head. There is no meaning in the phenomena of life. There is no meaning to sunrise, there's no meaning to a flower, there's no meaning to a cloud, there's no meaning to anything. It's just that it's fantastic, that's all. Meaning exists only in the psychological framework of the human being, and these meanings are simply because we are constantly dipping into our memory. In traditional terms in India, when we see people living out of their memory, we say, Ayyo karma. That means past memory is ruling them. They will never experience life. They will just recycle the same stuff.
Is it possible to shed or leave behind memory?
I'm sorry?
Is it possible to shed or leave behind your memory?
See, you don't
Because
have to
it's
shed
part of
your
your
memory.
identity.
No. If you shed your memory, you will again walk into the same pits that you walked in the past. Memory is not to be shed, it needs to be carried little loose, that it is not sticking to you all the time. See, your entire body right now is just memory. There is evolutionary memory, there is genetic memory, there is karmic memory, there is conscious, unconscious levels of memory, articulate and inarticulate levels of memory. In yoga we identify your existence as 8 dimensions of memory. This whole thing is memory, isn't it? See, you may not remember how 10 generations ago your great-grandmother looked like, but her nose is sitting on your face. Body remembers, isn't it? 100%. It doesn't matter where you go, what you do in your life, this body retains every bit of that memory, isn't it? So, this existence is memory, but do you want to use this body and this bank of memory that you have in your mind as a platform upon which you sit, or do you want to carry this on your head? This is the difference. Being conscious means you sit on this platform. Being unconscious means you carry it on your head, the burden of it.
You mentioned artificial intelligence. Are you worried about the future?
No, this is the best time for me.
Let me go back to the memory real quick. So I do agree with him. We definitely need to remember so that we don't repeat mistakes we've done in the past, which is exactly what I said, which I completely do agree. We should definitely remember the past, but don't let it burden us to the future or the present time. And this is something that I talked about with a friend about a lot of things. Again, like about earlier in this video, is about something happened to the family and why are the great-great-grandchildren fighting now as well. You know, something happened in the past. We remember our grandparents, our parents told us that these people are bad, so therefore we don't like them, we don't give them a chance to know them. This applies to also a lot of political stuff that I talked with my friend about. A lot of injustices that happened in the past. You know, injustices are terrible, but we need to look to the future. We need to just stop the injustice now. I'm sorry, I'm being very vague, which kind of stop the injustice now so that we don't have to correct anything necessarily. It's very vague, I know. Let's continue on. And AI, okay, so that's the next question. AI. That is an interesting question because there's this stereotypical belief of AI of like Terminator, when the robots just turn on us and kills us. And then maybe AI taking over the world. In sense of like Wall-E, where they're not necessarily evil, but you know, we just don't do anything for ourselves anymore and we're just lazy. Everything's, I mean, we get to live life though, because we get to do whatever we want and probably be sleeping and eating. but yeah. And what was the other one? I thought of the other one. Oh, the other one would be probably what he talked about, the 70% earlier, if you know what I mean. And then we will just stop making babies.
See, if, let us say, right now, you have read 10,000 things and you remember all that. I have not read anything. So, the value that you have is only the memory you have. But now I have a little gadget which knows 1,000,000 times more than you know. So now what is the value for you and me? what kind of a human being I am is the only value, isn't it? What nonsense you carry in your head is of no value.
I can look it up.
This is a great time for me. This is great time for humanity because now you being a human being will become more important than what nonsense you carry in your head.
Yes. When you don't have to learn everything, you can look it up at any time, you can actually live a life without having to worry. It's like, I need to know this. I need to know this one. I need to know that one. I need to remember all of this. Let me go back to the first ones because I forgot. Now you get to enjoy life, and anytime that you need to reference something, you can reference it immediately with your phone through the internet.
I'm sorry, this is head talk.
So are you saying then that we are living in the best time in history?
Probably not.
Definitely. Is there any question?
I mean, relative to the past, absolutely. I'm sure in the future it will get better.
Never before human survival was as well organized as it is today. If you had to start your morning, you had to take a bucket and go to River Thames, which is a mile away, and carry this bucket full of water. Tell me in this room, how many people are even fit enough to carry a bucket full of water for a mile? Now we're complaining because the warm water is not coming. There are two knobs you have to turn for warm and cold water. You want a single knob, so people are freaking in the morning. Two knobs have to handle. So, survival is better organized than ever before. When our concern was survival, we couldn't pay attention to other dimensions of life. See, once you come as a human being, if you had come as any other creature, stomach full, life settled. Once you come as a human being, stomach empty, only one problem, stomach full, 100 problems. Why this is so is, our life is not fulfilled with survival. When our survival is in question, we are just like any other creature. Only when survival is fulfilled, the dimensions of being human kicks in into our experience. When you're thinking of where is my next meal, we don't expect you to be very human. You lose it in many ways.
Get angry.
Now survival is settled for a large part of humanity. Unfortunately, there's still populations for whom it's still a struggle. But I would say at least for 60% of the population on the planet, for the first time, survival is better organized than ever before. The world is safer than ever before, though people are constantly complaining. Well, you're talking about Sri Lanka, yes, it's an unfortunate incident. But 1,000 years ago, if 1,000 people died just 100 miles away,
You wouldn't know
you
about
would
it.
be sitting here thinking world is super peaceful. Yes or no? Today it's because of BBC that somebody dies somewhere, the blood flows into your sitting room. It's a good thing, at least your humanity is being evoked, otherwise it'll sleep. So I'm saying, in terms of violence, we are more peaceful than ever before. Our survival is organized better than ever before, and above all, our ability to communicate is better than ever before. These are not small things. Now the question is, what are we going to communicate? Are we going to abuse each other? Are we going to throw dirty things at each other? Or are we going to do something that will transform us as a generation, because this is our time on the planet? Are we going to make this the greatest time in the world ever? Or are we going to let this pass? That's all we have on our hands. What else do we have? That's all we have. All we have is a little bit of time, isn't it? Hello? All we have is a little bit of time. But most people think they're immortal. That's why they don't do anything. Because they think only other people die. They don't understand you and me will die. When we are born, we are geared to die. So it's only a question of time. Time is ticking away right now. As you sit here, from the time we came and sat here, we're 20 minutes closer to our graves, all of us. Yes, if you're conscious, if you think about death once in a way, it'll become a morbid thought. But if you're conscious that you're mortal, you would organize your time in the most productive possible way, isn't it?
Are you worried about global leadership though? I mean, you say we're living in the best time it's the best time for us in terms of survival and technology. But if we look at the global phenomenons at the moment, I mean, even if we look at what's happening in this country with Brexit and identity politics and people feeling like they need to belong to a certain type of thinking or group on either side of the spectrum, is that not dividing us more and more?
It is. So much so. And that's something that I think about in America, because that's the only country I really kind of pay attention to. I try to live life because I want to live life more than pay attention to the crappy politics and identity crisis and all that. I can only fix the things that's within my grasp, and there's no sense in worrying about things that's across the country, even though kind of you should worry about the politics, because eventually that's going to affect you directly. Such a weird thing, I suppose. You shouldn't worry about the things that are far away, but you should worry about it because politics, and when politics, when you don't vote, you don't voice your opinion, and this politics comes right to your door because you didn't vote and you didn't pay attention, now you only have yourself to blame. Trying to live life, and now all of a sudden you're being forced to live a life. But yeah, it's really weird. It's exactly what Sadhguru was talking about, how when we're in survival mode, we don't really have very many things to complain about because we're too worried about surviving. Everything else is just of no consequence, because if you're dead, you're dead. So you have to make sure you have food, water, and shelter, and protection. And when we mastered that, all of a sudden 100 problems, like he was saying, which is kind of crazy. It's like, what? I mean, you have a fantastic opportunity to live a fantastic life, and all we do is create problems. Is that like that all over the place? No, thankfully not, but I feel that it might be growing. I just honestly don't know what the solution is, except for what Sadhguru says, inner peace. But the problem is, how many people is going to understand that? How many people is going to take that seriously? How many people will actually believe it, even if they say they follow it?
See, I think this reaction is happening not just here, in many places across the world. I've been talking to media and others saying, don't push the pendulum too much on one side, it'll inevitably swing the other way around.
I believe in that, so much so. And I believe that the pendulum is in fact getting pushed harder and harder, where the swing to my right, then to the left, with the political parties swing this way, where the party of the right gets strong and they're pushing their agenda, then the left pushes back, so the pendulum swings back to the left. And then all of a sudden the left pushes too much, and then the right swings back even harder, and then harder, and then it's getting more and more extreme. This pendulum, which used to just swing just enough, to keep the force and balance, the political party balance, the loss balance, but now it just keeps getting stronger and stronger. It's getting to the point where it's getting really extreme, and
so people have been pushing it too much on one side about politically being correct, saying the right word, not the right thing. The right word you must use. If I say mankind, women will react. I'm saying, is everybody so screwed up in their head? All the time they're discriminatory? I don't think so. Some people are, of course. But today it's become like this. It was very natural for me. If you see a child, you want to pick up the child, you want to do something, you want to talk to them, you want to hug.
Is he saying this is in India? Because this is the things he's talking about is happening in America. And probably in Western Europe, or in Europe. Probably Western Europe, but maybe even in all of Europe.
Them, whatever, because it's like a fresh flower. But today, you don't know whether to touch the child or not, because people are making such a big deal about it.
Don't get me wrong, there is a thing to say about that, but at the same time, I mean, you want to be safe, you want to make sure your child is safe, and you want to make sure no one that you don't know touches your child. I mean, I guess in the past was kind of acceptable for if a child runs up to a guy or a girl, that they because child are curious, friendly, and they just don't care, carefree, and the dude or the woman would say, hey, and just bring them back to the parents or whatever, no big deal. But in more of this modern time now, if it's a guy, it's like, oh, it's a pedophile, automatically assumed. Not so much so. Again, it is a growing trend, I believe. It's can be quite dangerous because kind of in the Western world, or at least in America, there's a growing trend that men are bad. Not all the time. It tends to be maybe in left leaning states, probably. I'm not sure, but I know there is that idea there. I believe it to be growing. Again, believe it to be growing. I have no proof of it. There is some proof of it. I just don't know how much. And that's kind of a sad thing. But at the same time, I do understand because, you kind of want to be safe. You want to protect your children.
I am not saying there are no issues. There are serious issues, this which needs to be addressed. But at the same time, when we push it to a paranoia level…
Extremes.
Instead of taking necessary steps, we make it a paranoia among people, then the other swing is inevitably going to come. Now somebody is saying, don't worry about all this ecological nonsense, nothing is going to happen, everything is fine, let us, let's do everything as it is because this is all rubbish, because you pushed it too much. This is very important to understand, people who are concerned in this world. If you are a concerned human being, it's very important, whatever you think is right, you must not push it too much. If you push it too much, the reverse pendulum will anyway happen, you're seeing that right now. Talking about Brexit, is it okay?
Okay, so I do have to pause it right here. It's getting a little long. Ooh, I wonder what he's going to say about Brexit, but God, again, everything that he talks about is something that I've thought about and completely agree with him. It's kind of crazy when we go too far extremes. And I talk again with someone on this channel where the political spectrum is a line, right? Where you have the far right, according to me, and far left. I don't think it's a line anymore. I don't think it's right and left. It's a freaking circle at this point, where the middle's here, the far right and left is in this point meeting together. They gone so far left and right, it made a circle, and they have the same ideas. They just don't see that. It's kind of crazy. Anyways, that's the first half of my reaction to Yalda, Hakim with Sadhguru on religion, politics, and human society. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid. Ooh, I said that really fast.